inteligência e brutalidade, intelectualidade e intriga, religião e carnificina. O Império Bizantino era um farol de luz com um lado escuro.
They called themselves Romanos, those who continued the traditions of the Roman Empire.
Governados por líderes de poder absoluto e arquitetos que queriam sobrepujar Roma, os bizantinos construíram o mais longo aqueduto do mundo. Muralhas praticamente inexpugnáveis e uma colossal catedral que desafiava as leis da natureza.
A church of unprecedented proportions grew up magically.
Mas levar adiante o legado de Roma tinha um preço.
He blinded 14,000 men, leaving every 100th man with one eye.
O Império Bizantino foi a civilização dominante da Idade das Trevas. Mas após um milênio de domínio, os próprios feitos de engenharia prejudicariam o Império. A velha luz se extinguiu com o vento das guerras modernas. Construindo o Império. Bizâncio.
Hi, I'm Peter Weller. Byzantium was an ancient Greek city-state founded around 600 BC, named after its king Byzantus. They settled here because of this thin strip of water that connected Asia to Europe and the Black Sea to eventually the Mediterranean. This strip of water is called the Strait of Bosphorus, meaning bull track from ancient mythology. Byzantine today means scheming or old or devious. But during its 1100 years, the Byzantine Empire would not only be the savior to the Western world's profound heritage of law and literature, but it would put Christianity on the fast track and along the way give us the artisans and builders and craftsmen who would eventually light up the Renaissance right into the 21st century. And all of this would happen under the auspices of a single emperor named Constantine, who of all of the fakers and charlatans that history has coughed up to steal the moniker the Great, Constantine really deserved it.
Novembro de 324 d.C. Após 2 décadas de feroz guerra civil, o imperador Constantino conseguiu finalmente o controle de todo o Império Romano. Era um líder de visão, brilhante estrategista e não tolerava limites.
He became emperor really through his own wiles. He is ruthless in the way he assumes power.
Constantine the Great was one of those rulers that changed the world. He inherited a Roman Empire which had been divided into 2 parts.
Constantino reunificou o vasto império e governou bem as 2 metades.
He was a very astute politician, and he was faced with the problem of both administering and of managing this enormous realm.
Seis semanas após subir ao trono, Constantino viajou para a ponta do Império, um local remoto da Turquia de hoje.
Constantine took a spear and traced the outline of the city in the dirt. His entourage was somewhat amazed at the extent to which he intended to build the city. He is said to have commented, "I will go as far as until he who leads me stops."
Ele traçara os limites da nova capital do Império, a Nova Roma, um nome que não pegou. Desse esboço nasceu uma cidade esplendorosa no centro de um grande e novo império. A capital ficaria conhecida como Constantinopla, cidade de Constantino.
Constantine effectively shifts the center of the Roman Empire and founds a new center.
He was moving away from Rome with its old rivalries, political infighting, vested interests and so forth, to create something quite new, which he could mold.
Constantino decidiu que a nova cidade seria construída com as técnicas aperfeiçoadas do Império Romano.
There was a grand campaign of construction, of building forums, marketplaces, to build the kind of buildings that ancient Rome had.
O governo de Constantino seria marcado por uma distinção. Diferentemente dos antecessores, ele se aliaria a outro grande líder. Seu nome era Jesus Cristo.
Christianity is really on the rise. There is a large Christian presence in the empire, and simply recognizing this presence made a good deal of political sense.
Constantinople was founded, in effect, as a Christian empire, and Orthodox Christianity was fundamental to its existence.
Now we have to remember that even though Constantine was venerated by Christianity, he's still an emperor. In other words, a dictator who's not only killed his son, his stepson, but also his second wife, all on the same trip to Italy. So if the boy wants a city, he's going to get a city and not take no for an answer. Problem is, how do you attract people to a dusty town in the hinterlands called Byzantium? Well, first of all, you might want to rename it after yourself. And second of all, in the style of all Roman emperors, rebuild it. If Constantine could rise out of the grave today and see the success story of Istanbul, population 12 million, 2 million tourists a year, he'd probably faint. Because in 337 AD, when he dies, not only is the city half done, but he's got a big problem. Bulging population, one little provincial aqueduct in a city surrounded by sea. So there's water everywhere, but not a drop to drink.
Em meados do século IV, a cidade agonizava de sede. Os sucessores de Constantino tinham de desenvolver um sistema muito maior que o de Roma para manter viva a cidade. O que eles construiriam seria uma das maiores façanhas de engenharia do mundo antigo.
There were no local water resources within the city walls of Constantinople, and hence water had to be brought from a much greater distance than anywhere else in the classical world and in the Mediterranean.
A tarefa coube a ambicioso imperador chamado Valente, que reinou de 364 a 378 depois de Cristo. Foi ele que projetou e executou o mais longo sistema de aquedutos do mundo. Quando completado, o sistema conduziria água por estonteantes 700 quilômetros, igual a todos os aquedutos de Roma somados. A linha principal começaria a 250 quilômetros a oeste, nas terras da Trácia. Os engenheiros teriam de achar um modo de obter um declive constante para manter a água em movimento.
There are tunnels underground, there are channels that go along the surface, and there are, where necessary, these great aqueduct bridges.
Entre os séculos IV e VI, os bizantinos construíram 60 pontes condutoras. A mais impressionante elevava-se a 30 metros. Hoje é conhecida como Aqueduto Romano de Valente. Primeiramente, os engenheiros construíram gigantescos suportes, ou pilares. Prontos os suportes, grandes arcos neles se apoiaram. Formas de madeira continham as pedras no lugar, até a pedra-chave ser posicionada para fechar o arco. Novas formas passavam para outra camada e o processo se repetia. Tal como os romanos, os pedreiros bizantinos adornavam as pontes com desenhos religiosos, mas com uma diferença. Os bizantinos usaram símbolos cristãos em vez de pagãos. A 130 quilômetros dali, outra ponte ainda maior canalizaria a água para o centro de Constantinopla, que hoje é a maior cidade da Turquia, Istambul.
I'm standing on top of the giant aqueduct bridge built for the ancient city of Constantinople under the Emperor Valens. Boy, does that name ring power to you. Valens. Now, the entire aqueduct span is 150 miles, but just this section between two hills in Constantinople is 11 football fields long. And boy, did it take care of the city's water problem. But it not only took care of the water problem, just as we've seen in all of the empires, if you want to make a political statement with a public work, you build it big.
Contudo, levar a água até a cidade era apenas metade da batalha. Uma vez lá, ela teria de ser estocada, e terrenos vazios era o que mais faltava. Os engenheiros aceitaram o desafio e construíram um sistema subterrâneo mais sofisticado do que tudo o que havia no mundo antigo. Criaram mais de 150 tanques subterrâneos, e o maior é esta, a cisterna da Basílica. Tem 336 colunas de 8 metros que sustentam um teto de 153 de comprimento por 77 de largura. A cisterna da basílica poderia armazenar água suficiente para encher 27 piscinas olímpicas. Os tanques subterrâneos foram construídos entre as colinas, uma solução engenhosa, pois não só utilizava terras baixas, como ainda formava superfícies planas.
The cisterns enabled the city to be provided continuously by water, even in the summer when it wouldn't rain that much and there'd be merely a trickle coming down from the aqueduct.
Com esse vasto sistema subterrâneo, a população de Constantinopla aumentou e chegou a muito mais do que a média do mundo antigo.
By the end of the 5th century, the population of Constantinople was approaching the 500,000 mark.
No other city in Western Europe came even close.
It was a city that was legendary, even for people who had never set foot in it.
Mas longe dali, das estepes da Mongólia, viria uma onda que afogaria a Europa. Essa onda era comandada por um homem chamado Átila, cujo exército logo chegaria às portas de Constantinopla. Só um milagre da engenharia militar, sob a forma do maior sistema defensivo da antiguidade, salvaria a cidade. 410 depois de Cristo, Roma fora invadida por tribos germânicas, os visigodos. Os romanos fugiram para leste, em busca da paz de Constantinopla, mas era uma questão de tempo. Logo uma horda selvagem desabaria sobre a cidade. Eram os temíveis hunos.
Now, as the west will decline, the east and Constantinople will become a boom town. Only burr in the saddle is, the richer Constantinople gets, the more those marauding northern tribes who have been attacking Italy start to look at Constantinople and go,
Constantino o Grande pusera o Império Bizantino no mapa. Agora os hunos esperavam apagá-lo.
The descriptions of them in contemporary texts, which treat them as outlandish, horrible, ugly, beastly people, make it very clear that ordinary people were absolutely terrified of the Huns.
Mas os bizantinos tinham um plano para manter os hunos à distância. Encarapitada na ponta de uma península, Constantinopla tinha grande vantagem sobre a velha capital, Roma, que ficara desprotegida e exposta. Para rechaçar o inimigo, Constantinopla necessitaria de uma formidável defesa ao longo das fronteiras do oeste. A solução foi o mais forte e sofisticado sistema de muralhas jamais construído. Hoje elas são conhecidas como muros de Teodósio. Ironicamente, o crédito da maior engenharia militar do Velho Mundo foi para uma criança quando as muralhas foram projetadas, Teodósio II. A construção das defesas começou quando Teodósio tinha 12 anos. Era o prefeito Antêmio que merecia o crédito da concepção das muralhas. Os romanos construíram muralhas por muitos séculos, mas os bizantinos depararam com um desafio maior. Constantinopla fora erguida sobre uma falha, e os terremotos eram uma constante ameaça. Mas como construir algo que aguentasse terremotos? Resposta: argamassa de calcário.
In the West, Romans used concrete, which created a mortar of stone-like hardness that is rigid once it sets. Lime mortar has a little bit of give to it, so that it will allow the buildings to settle without significant breakage.
O engenhoso projeto utilizava a argamassa de calcário alternada com faixas de tijolo e pedra. Primeiro, ergueram paredes paralelas, enchidas com pedrisco e argamassa. Para unir as camadas de pedra e pedrisco, faixas de 5 grossas fileiras de tijolos foram assentadas por toda a largura das muralhas.
The hidden advantage of that also is that it provides a certain flexibility against minor earth tremors, because the addition of the brick breaks up the solid face of the wall and allows the wall to absorb shock without shattering.
Com essa técnica, os bizantinos ergueram uma barreira maciça de mais de 10 metros de altura e nada menos que 5 metros de largura. Tinha 96 torres, que alcançavam mais de 20 metros. Mas aquilo seria suficiente para barrar os hunos?
General William Tecumseh Sherman said about the Comanche Indians, the best equestrians of latter years, that they'd been on a horse for so long it looked like they didn't know how to walk. Well, the Huns were the granddaddies of the Comanche. They lived, breathed, and died by the horse. They developed the stirrup, which allowed them to stand up in the saddle and sling arrows and swords with a deadly accuracy. They rode from China to India to Europe, plundering and terrorizing, feasting on raw meat, which they tenderized between their thighs as they rode, dressed in the skins of field mice, which they wore until those skins rotted off. Let me put it this way. Attila and the Huns gave a new meaning to the word fierce.
He was very good at what he did. He was very good at raping and pillaging and breaking down the defenses of the Roman Empire.
Nos primeiros 7 anos de reinado, Átila conquistou boa parte da Europa. Mas, apesar das tentativas, ainda não conseguira capturar Constantinopla. A Mãe Natureza veio ajudá-lo. Em 447 d.C., uma série de terremotos catastróficos abalou a cidade, e muito mais fortes do que os engenheiros haviam previsto. Era a oportunidade que Átila tanto esperara. 57 torres tinham sido arrasadas, deixando a cidade desprotegida. O exército de Átila aproximou-se mais uma vez, ameaçando Constantinopla. Das ruínas, Teodósio ergueu-se e convocou o povo da cidade não só para ajudar a reconstruir as muralhas, como para torná-las mais formidáveis que antes. Mas com os hunos se aproximando, eles tinham algumas semanas para reerguer as muralhas que haviam levado anos construindo. Os bizantinos, porém, deram duro. E as novas muralhas agora contavam com uma linha tripla de defesa.
There must have been an enormous amount of planning, a lot of engineering skill. For its period, it was the most complex and expensive defensive system in the world outside of China.
Primeira barreira, um fosso gigantesco, além dele um enorme terraço. E a seguir, uma nova muralha de 3 metros de altura e 2 de espessura. A última e mais impressionante linha de defesa era a enorme muralha interna, totalmente reconstruída e guardada pelas 96 torres.
Each tower is its own individual little castle. So to conquer the walls of the city, it would mean penetrating the moat, the outer walls, the inner wall, 3 lines of defense, and then conquering all of these individual castles one by one.
It's an extremely clever system. All the angles, all the possibilities for the technology of the time are covered.
A obra foi completada em cima da hora. O exército de Átila surgiu no alto da colina e viu a intransponível defesa de Constantinopla. Átila jamais invadiu a capital bizantina.
The city was secure because of its walls. There are any number of times in the history of the Byzantine Empire where attackers get as far as the walls of the city, but they can go no further.
Por milênio, o Império Bizantino seria salvo pelas muralhas dos hunos e árabes, dos russos e turcos.
The survival of Constantinople for as long as it did survive was very much due to the fact that it was a walled city which was almost impregnable.
Tendo terminado a barreira, os engenheiros procuraram proteger a cidade de ameaças vindas do mar. A solução foi inventiva e muito eficaz. Uma corrente gigantesca, a maior já feita no mundo. Os ferreiros bizantinos forjaram essa corrente maciça de comprimento igual ao de 5 campos de futebol, com boias a cada 60 centímetros, as quais flutuavam em troncos de madeira. Quando necessário, os bizantinos faziam a corrente cruzar todo o chifre de ouro, ou seu estuário, isolando assim o porto. Finalmente protegida dos inimigos, Constantinopla pôde crescer.
The walls of Constantinople were so thick and so large and so successful because they had to be. Constantinople was extremely rich. And it's like a bank with a very significant vault. It was the richest city in the world.
Quase todas as rotas de comércio faziam ponto na cidade. Riquezas de países longínquos como o Egito, China e Rússia passavam pela capital bizantina, no caminho para o Ocidente. Mas com tanto dinheiro e largueza, os inimigos começaram a devastar a periferia em busca de migalhas.
The capital may have been bulging with success, but the empire was steadily shrinking as the frontiers fell one after another to marauding tribes. By the death of Theodosius II in 450 AD, the Mediterranean Sea, which had once been like Rome's private lake, now looked like a huge ocean against which the empire was nothing more than a beach resort. Reviving Constantine's Rome would be the single obsession of a very controversial emperor who would marry a very dynamic woman who possessed very special skills.
Por todo o século V, o Império Romano Ocidental foi se desintegrando sob o jugo de tribos bárbaras. Em 476, o último imperador romano abdicou do trono. Para muitos, o Império Romano havia terminado.
But did it really fall? Because at the same time, here in Constantinople, the Eastern Empire is thriving. It's prospering. And in 527 AD, an emperor named Justinian comes to the throne, who's not only completely committed to recodifying all of Roman law, he's bent on reconquering Constantine's empire.
Justiniano I reinou no período de ouro do Império Bizantino. Ironicamente, o homem que resgatou a glória da velha Roma era um forasteiro.
Well, the Emperor Justinian was born a peasant in what is now northern Yugoslavia, and he came with his uncle Justin to Constantinople to seek their fortunes.
Seu reinado de 40 anos foi marcado pelo brilhantismo intelectual, por um trabalho ético sem paralelo e pela crueldade sem freio. 2 anos antes de assumir o poder, Justiniano casou-se com uma linda e autoritária mulher chamada Teodora. Só havia um problema. Teodora tinha sido dançarina de cabaré. Para limpar esse pouco recomendável passado, Justiniano promoveu-a. No dia de sua coroação, nomeou Teodora co-imperatriz. A ascensão da jovem dançarina chocou a aristocracia bizantina.
She was supposedly a prostitute hanging out around the hippodrome, involved in things like bear dancing. Not exactly sure what happens in bear dancing, but evidently it was not such a great thing. And she had a very active sex life.
Juntos, Justiniano e Teodora governaram o império como iguais.
She must have been highly intelligent, and she must have been very wily, very successful at court politics.
Justiniano logo percebeu que seu legado seria restaurar a glória passada da velha Roma. E começou resgatando territórios que haviam sido perdidos ao longo dos séculos. Quando voltou a Constantinopla, Justiniano entregou-se à febre de construções.
Bad news is, to pay for this building, he went on a ballistic campaign of taxation, which was just as popular then as it probably would have been now. Along with the taxes, he tries to control or stamp out any form of pagan celebration, the study of the ancient philosophers at Athens, gambling, prostitution, adultery, homosexuality, any Christian that doesn't see it his way, and the Jews. He didn't have a lot of fans. But so what? He's an emperor. He's not listening to approval ratings. But you know what? He should have.
O punho de Justiniano pesava. E o ressentimento do povo mudou para a raiva, diferentemente de outras civilizações em que as massas não tinham onde reclamar, os bizantinos contavam com o hipódromo. O hipódromo era o centro da vida pública. Concebido como o estádio de corridas, podia acomodar 100.000 pessoas. Sua construção fora feita ao longo dos séculos. Era uma obra gigantesca, com todas as técnicas conhecidas de construção. Com o formato de um grande U, nos moldes do famoso Circo Máximo romano, o hipódromo de Constantinopla tinha quase 600 metros de comprimento e era mais largo que um campo de futebol. Contudo, a área escolhida pelo arquiteto era em aclive.
And there they built vaulted substructures. As is common in ancient Rome, vaulted substructures to create a level platform.
Construtores e pedreiros foram chamados do Mediterrâneo. A primeira tarefa foi construir a subestrutura de arcos de 4 andares. Os arcos serviam de galeria para lojas e cafés. Acima da subestrutura, 2 carreiras de colunas e mais de 30 fileiras de assentos de pedra cercavam a pista coberta de areia. Como todos os antecessores, Justiniano sentava-se em um camarote imperial chamado catisma, dando aos bizantinos a ocasião de ver seu imperador.
It was a combination of sports stadium, public spectacle stadium, imperial propaganda, pulpit, all those things. It could seat huge numbers of people.
As apostas eram feitas pelos torcedores dos times, azuis, verdes, vermelhos e brancos.
They were like political factions in our world, and so disputes over soccer results as today or disputes over chariot races could take on a significant political dimension in Byzantium.
O hipódromo era uma das glórias arquitetônicas de Constantinopla, mas em 532 depois de Cristo, ele se tornaria palco de um dos mais brutais atos de um imperador contra o povo. Em um dia de janeiro, Justiniano, que se tornara impopular graças a duras leis e impostos, apareceu perante uma multidão hostil no hipódromo.
All of a sudden they came together, and they came together against the emperor. The ceremonial political center of the empire was right there, and you had tens of thousands of people opposed to the emperor right at the core of the empire.
The Blues and the Greens weren't like the Jets and the Sharks. They were factions that ran all the way from street thugs right up the political animal to the aristocracy. So when thousands and thousands of both Blues and Greens stormed the Hippodrome screaming, "Nika, Nika, win, win," against these horrible taxes, it would have been like both Republicans and Democrats storming the Super Bowl screaming about the same thing, which may not be a bad idea. The sad news is it turned into a riot, and the riot turned into mayhem, and a week later a third of the city lay in ashes. Justinian was so scared he was about to pack his bags and split. But thank goodness for a strong woman.
He was all prepared to get on a ship and clear off to the Asian side of the Bosporus, but the Empress Theodora, who started life as an actress stroke prostitute, said, "I've got this far, I'm not giving up now, stay and fight." So he did.
As palavras de Teodora convenceram Justiniano, cujo revide seria assustador e terrível. Mandou que os generais reunissem um exército e marchou para o hipódromo.
The conclusion of the Nicaea riot is one of these events of biblical proportion. Justinian calls the rebels to meet in the Hippodrome, suggesting that he may compromise with them. But in fact, he gets them into the Hippodrome, closes the gates, and they are massacred by the imperial troops.
Em minutos, todos os rebeldes ali encerrados foram sistematicamente degolados. O centro da vida política de Constantinopla tornara-se o campo de extermínio de cerca de 30.000 pessoas.
He was an approachable and gentle man who could, with a quiet voice, order the murder of thousands of people.
A capital jazia em ruínas, mas nos escombros, Justiniano viu uma oportunidade. Agora construiria um legado duradouro em nome do poder absoluto, o dele. Nas cinzas de Constantinopla, ele ergueria uma igreja que assombraria o mundo, centro inconteste da nova religião e penhor indelével da engenharia bizantina. 532 depois de Cristo, o imperador Justiniano sobrevivera à revolta nica, mas o coração do Império Bizantino jazia em ruínas. Justiniano, porém, quis revitalizar seu poder e reconstruir a capital em nome de Deus e no seu.
What Justinian did after his imperial army put down the riot was to immediately begin to refurbish the city and proclaim to the citizens that he was in control and that everything was right in the Roman Empire.
Now, we remember Justinian not because he was ruthless, but we remember the period of Justinian because he has left us such an incredible architectural legacy.
A grande prioridade do imperador era reconstruir a catedral da cidade, chamada Igreja da Sagrada Sabedoria. Nós a conhecemos hoje como Hagia Sophia. Justiniano contratou 2 arquitetos de nomes Isidoro e Antêmio para projetar a catedral. Eram ambos professores de física e matemática. Conheciam a teoria, mas careciam de experiência em construção.
The architects of Hagia Sophia were not the standard architects of the day. They, for better or worse, were professors. We professors sometimes don't have the most sound practical knowledge.
Mas Justiniano deu-lhes carta branca com apenas 2 exigências: construir o mais rapidamente possível e criar algo absolutamente único na Terra. As obras começaram algumas semanas depois da revolta nica.
It took years to put together building teams, to bring together all of the building materials that were needed for a great project in the empire. Justinian did it practically instantly.
Isidoro e Antêmio fizeram um projeto revolucionário no conceito e de tamanho sem precedentes. Resolveram criar o maior domo jamais construído, com 30 metros de diâmetro. Começaram usando um recurso já tentado pelos romanos, que nunca chegara a bom termo. Era o pendente. O primeiro passo foi construir 4 grandes arcos, onde o domo repousaria. A seguir, os pendentes, triângulos arredondados que ligam a base circular do domo ao suporte quadrado e distribuem o peso igualmente entre os 4 arcos. Acrescentando semidomos menores, a área poderia ser ainda maior. Com o uso de pendentes, os arquitetos de Justiniano puderam construir um domo gigantesco que aparentemente pairava no ar. O domo tinha 55 metros de altura, quase 10 a mais que a Estátua da Liberdade. A nave, que ficava abaixo do domo, era um enorme espaço livre de 75 metros por 70.
There were 100 teams of workmen, each with 100 men, with half of them working on the north side of the building, half of them working on the south side of the building, and competing to create the great building.
A church of unprecedented proportions grew up magically, almost magically, faster than any kind of construction at that time on that scale.
Hagia Sophia foi inaugurada em 537 d.C., menos de 6 anos após a pedra fundamental.
Justinian was very proud of his church, as he should be. It was a great idea, it was a great conceptual plan. The implementation of that plan, the actual structure, was risky.
A more experienced or pragmatic builder would have seen that trying to build a dome of this size with the materials given in a short amount of time would have been dicey at best. Before the construction was even finished, the 4 piers hold up the arches started to buckle and collapse. 20 years later, an earthquake happens. Boom, whole dome comes in. Now, Isidorus the Younger, the nephew of the original Isidorus that built it, addressed the flaws in the dome, had to reconstruct it. One of the flaws, most important one, is that he raised the pitch of the dome because more vertical load of a higher dome will drive the weight into the ground, which is good support. A short, squatty dome with horizontal load drive the weight sideways, and kaboom, the dome falls in. So Isidorus raises the dome 21 feet, boom, and voila, you got the dome you see today.
A Hagia Sophia ficou conhecida não só pelo projeto arrojado. Até as colunas foram adornadas com monogramas do imperador e da imperatriz.
We are never allowed to forget that this is the great achievement of Justinian and Theodora.
Justiniano havia criado um centro para a cristandade e mais tarde consolidou Constantinopla como capital do mundo cristão.
He got an architect that was going to make a grand statement. And a grand statement was made. The largest church in Christendom, the greatest dome space in the world until the Renaissance. He got a building that dwarfed any of the great baths of ancient Rome or any of the great temples of the ancient world.
No final da era Justiniano, o império atingira seu tamanho maior, englobando a Síria, a Palestina, a Ásia Menor, Itália, Grécia e o norte da África, isto é, Egito. Mas o povo bizantino pagaria caro por tamanha expansão. As constantes campanhas militares de Justiniano, mais a obsessão de reconstruir Constantinopla, virtualmente levaram o império à falência.
The empire really never recovers from the megalomania of Justinian. It's perhaps fitting that the dome of Hagia Sophia collapses. It's as if Justinian, as he is overextending the political boundaries of the empire, he's also overextending the architecture as well.
Por 3 séculos após a morte de Justiniano, uma série de imperadores governariam um território cada vez menor. Apesar disso, Constantinopla manteve-se ilesa, e no século X os bizantinos mais uma vez se ergueriam no fulgor da glória militar. Combateriam com armas novas, sob a chefia do guerreiro mais estrategicamente militar entre todos os que usaram a coroa.
The year is 1000 AD, the end of the first millennium of the Common Era. The force of Europe now lies in the north, with France and Germany and the Holy Roman Empire. While here in Constantinople in the east, the Byzantines have survived wars with Visigoths, Persians, Avars, and Arabs, and weathered a very disheartening period in the 700s called iconoclasm, where they have smashed most of their art. But the Byzantines are on the rebound now, and by 1014 they are poised to reconquer the entire Balkan Peninsula from the Danube River all the way to Greece.
Quem comandou os bizantinos em sua volta foi Basílio II. Homem do povo, Basílio foi o mais brilhante militar do lendário império.
He was an emperor that did not sit back and enjoy the luxuries of the palace. He went out campaigning every season, leading the Byzantine armies against the foes.
He was seen to be a soldier's emperor, but there's no doubt he ranks as a highly competent, very able, very intelligent, very versatile military leader, as well as a good ruler.
O maior inimigo de Basílio era o rei Samuel, que reinava na Bulgária, um país eslavo que buscava o controle da Península Balcânica. Em 986, ainda jovem, Basílio sofrera a devastadora derrota de Samuel.
The first time he marched north, he was only 18, I think. He might have been a bit younger. And he walked into an ambush, basically.
Humilhado, Basílio jurou vingar-se da nação búlgara. Essa vingança levaria 1/4 de século para se realizar. Enquanto isso, sua derrota animara os rivais bizantinos. Depois de esmagar uma série de revoltas no Império, Basílio voltou a atenção para fora. Queria recuperar as terras perdidas. Resolvido a restaurar a glória bizantina, mandou que os engenheiros projetassem um novo modelo de arma de sítio, o trebuchet. O mecanismo era simples. Usando cordas, os operadores carregavam um braço de madeira com linga e pedra. A frente e os lados da estrutura de madeira eram cobertos com peles de animais, a fim de protegê-las de flechas incendiárias.
You'd have your axle and your pivoting sling because of the disparity between the short end on one side of the axle and the long end on the other. You'd maximize the velocity in the swing, so you could throw substantial weights considerable distances.
Mas Basílio não aceitava meias medidas. O trebuchet de seus engenheiros arremessava pedras de mais de 200 quilos e exigia muita força para ser operado. 400 homens. Com as melhores tropas do mundo e o melhor aparato de sítio, o exército bizantino era irresistível. Após anos de batalhas, Basílio desenvolvera um sistema de férrea disciplina com seus homens.
He has a reputation of being harsh but fair, and of course, if the soldiers believe in their leader, they'll fight better and more effectively.
Ele proibiu que quebrassem a formação e ensinou-lhes a estar sempre prontos a qualquer momento. Seu exército deslocava-se rapidamente em qualquer terreno. Finalmente, em 1001, Basílio decidiu que era tempo de voltar à Bulgária e realizar sua esperada vingança.
He then turns his attention back to Bulgaria and spends the next 15 years basically solidly campaigning year on year, gradually destroying the Bulgars' infrastructure, ravaging the countryside, destroying the economy.
O rei Samuel logo conheceria o vendaval que viria de Basílio.
Samuel had been the only man to beat Basil in battle, and for that distinction he would pay dearly. On July 29th in the year 1014, Basil launched a surprise attack, conquering the Bulgarian army, capturing 14,000 men. His revenge would be brutal. He blinded all of them, leaving every 100th man with one eye to lead the rest back to Bulgaria. When Samuel saw his ragged and mutilated army, he collapsed, and 2 days later he died.
It's one thing to execute all of these people. It's another thing to send them back to the country where their countrymen in some ways have to take care of all these people. So they become a kind of permanent liability to the society.
Essa cruel vitória valeu ao imperador o controle dos Balcãs e o cognome Matador de Búlgaros. Em 1025, quando Basílio morreu, os bizantinos achavam-se no auge do poder, mas o império ficou sem líder e à mercê de lutas internas.
In subsequent times, the empire needed a great general like Basil II. They didn't have one.
Em 1453, os otomanos assestaram sua nova arma contra as invencíveis muralhas de Constantinopla. Tijolos e pedras não puderam enfrentar o fogo de canhões.
Gunpowder and cannon changed the rules of war. Byzantium, Constantinople was built for a system of fighting that was obsolete by the 15th century.
Após 1100 anos, as muralhas inexpugnáveis finalmente caíram. Constantinopla agora se chamava Istambul. O Império Bizantino terminara, mas suas inovações e feitos de engenharia são até hoje um testamento de sua magnífica civilização, que começara nos moldes da antiga Roma e terminara criando um modelo próprio.
What's fascinating about the Byzantine Empire is we tend to talk about empires in terms of their political might. With the Byzantine Empire, we have to understand it as a cultural power.
It was a highly sophisticated intellectual culture. The Greek monks, Greek priests were interested in ancient literature. They preserved ancient text.
It is often said that the fall of Constantinople, with the books going to the West, is what aided in the birth of the Renaissance.
Constantinople had built magnificently. They catapulted Christianity into the world. They'd shaped the Western world's laws. They preserved the heritage of knowledge from antiquity. But the Byzantine Empire was gone for good. For the History Channel, I'm Peter Weller.
depois de Cristo. Após 2 décadas de feroz guerra civil, o imperador Constantino conseguiu finalmente o controle de todo o Império Romano. Era um líder de visão, brilhante estrategista e não tolerava limites.
He became emperor really through his own wiles. He is ruthless in the way he assumes power.
Constantine the Great was one of those rulers that changed the world. He inherited a Roman Empire which had been divided into 2 parts.
Constantino reunificou o vasto império e governou bem as 2 metades.
He was a very astute politician, and he was faced with the problem of both administering and of managing this enormous realm.
6 semanas após subir ao trono, Constantino viajou para a ponta do Império, um local remoto da Turquia de hoje.
Constantine took a spear and traced the outline of the city.
Por uma distinção. Diferentemente dos antecessores, ele se aliaria a outro grande líder. Seu nome era Jesus Cristo.
Christianity is really on the rise. There is a large Christian presence in the empire, and simply recognizing this presence made a good deal of political sense.
Constantinople was founded, in effect, as a Christian empire, and Orthodox Christianity was fundamental to its existence.
Now we have to remember that even though Constantine was venerated by Christianity, he's still an emperor. In other words, a dictator who's not only killed his son, his stepson, but also his second wife, all on the same trip to Italy. So if the boy wants a city, he's going to get a city and not take no for an answer. Problem is, how do you attract people to a dusty town in the hinterlands called Byzantium? Well, first of all, you might want to rename it after yourself. And second of all, in the style of all Roman emperors, rebuild it. If Constantine could rise out of the grave today and see the success story of Istanbul, population...
Inteligência e brutalidade, intelectualidade e intriga, religião e carnificina. O Império Bizantino era um farol de luz com um lado escuro.
They called themselves Romanos, those who continued the traditions of the Roman Empire.
Governados por líderes de poder absoluto e arquitetos que queriam sobrepujar Roma, os bizantinos construíram o mais longo aqueduto do mundo. Muralhas praticamente inexpugnáveis e uma colossal catedral que desafiava as leis da natureza.
A church of unprecedented proportions grew up magically.
Mas levar adiante o legado de Roma tinha um preço.
He blinded 14,000 men, leaving every 100th man with one eye.
O Império Bizantino foi a civilização dominante da Idade das Trevas. Mas após um milênio de domínio, os próprios feitos de engenharia prejudicariam o Império. A velha luz se extinguiu com o vento das guerras modernas.
In the dirt. His entourage was somewhat amazed at the extent to which he intended to build the city. He is said to have commented, "I will go as far as until he who leads me stops."
Ele traçara os limites da nova capital do Império, a Nova Roma, um nome que não pegou. Desse esboço nasceu uma cidade esplendorosa no centro de um grande e novo império. A capital ficaria conhecida como Constantinopla, cidade de Constantino.
Constantine effectively shifts the center of the Roman Empire and founds a new center.
He was moving away from Rome with its old rivalries, political infighting, vested interests and so forth, to create something quite new which he could mold.
Constantino decidiu que a nova cidade seria construída com as técnicas aperfeiçoadas do Império Romano.
There was a grand campaign of construction, of building forums, marketplaces, to build the kind of buildings that ancient Rome had.
O governo de Constantino seria marcado construindo um império. Bizâncio.
Hi, I'm Peter Weller. Byzantium was an ancient Greek city-state founded around 600 BC, named after its king Byzantius. They settled here because of this thin strip of water that connected Asia to Europe and the Black Sea to eventually the Mediterranean. This strip of water is called the Strait of Bosphorus, meaning bull track from ancient mythology. Byzantine today means scheming or old or devious. But during its 1100 years, the Byzantine Empire would not only be the savior to the Western world's profound heritage of law and literature, but it would put Christianity on the fast track and along the way give us the artisans and builders and craftsmen who would eventually light up the Renaissance right into the 21st century. And all of this would happen under the auspices of a single emperor named Constantine, who of all of the fakers and charlatans that history has coughed up to steal the moniker the Great, Constantine really deserved it.
Novembro de